What is up, everybody? It is your man Brian back with you, and today we're going to be starting the build tutorials. Okay, now in a couple videos ago, I did ask for some opinions as to what you guys wanted to see me start out with, and a lot of people asked me to just start out with the basic builds and work my way up to keep the beginners in mind and people that are just getting into building and everything like that. So we are going to do a basic build today. I'm going to do a dual coil using 24 gauge Canthal. You can get this Canthal Lightning Vapes. I got a bunch of wire from wireandstuff.co.uk if you don't mind waiting a little while to get your wire. When I put my order in, it took maybe 3 business days for the PayPal money to clear, and it took maybe about 6 business days to get here. So about a week and a half business day for all my wire to get here, and they're very cheap. I ordered almost 3,000 foot of wire, and it was like under $100. So if you don't mind waiting, you can go there. Light and Vapes prices are pretty good, and they ship quicker. But if you don't mind waiting, and you want to spend less money, go to Wire and Stuff. Both are good wire. I've used both wire in both builds. That's actually the wire I have in here is the wire from Wire and Stuff. It's a stainless steel stapled fused Clapton dual coil. This is aiming out to .08. I got that on my ABS parallel box on the Twisted Messes. This is an awesome vape. So let's get this build tutorial underway, shall we, guys? Like I already told you what wire we're going to be using. We're going to be building on the Tugboat RDA, whichever one it is. It's the one that comes with, I'm guessing it's the Tugboat RDA because it says Tugboat on the side. Excuse me while I try to get it to where you guys can see it. Anyway, it's Tugboat RDA. So the couple things you're going to need is you're going to need your wire cutters. Alright, I got the Geek Vape 521 tab. I'm thinking about shooting a review on this, but there's already a lot of reviews out there, so I don't know if I'm going to or not. But this is awesome. This and the Coil Master are both awesome. You can check your ohms and fire your coils to get them glowing before you put them on your mod, so you don't have to worry about switching on and off and everything like that, because that can be a pain in the ass to do. Now I'm gonna show how to build two different ways today, two different things. We're going to be using the Curo Concepts coiler, and I'm also going to be showing you how to do the wraps on the coil jig. Okay, other tools you're going to need is Phillips head screwdriver, because this RDA has Phillips screws in it. I like to grab my wire with pliers. You're going to need, obviously, your Curo coiler or Coil Master. Same difference. Oh, I just dropped my bit. Give me a second. Yep, there she is. Put her back in there. Put her in the hole. That's what she said. Going to need your coil jig. And for the end of it, I like to use a paper clip to stuff my cotton down in the RDA. Obviously, you're going to need a pair of scissors to cut your cotton. And I like to have a pair of tweezers handy just to pinch my coils and glow them when I'm strum and all that. We'll get into that after we get the coils built. So I'm going to face the camera down and get this thing underway. So bear with me for a second, guys. Alright, guys, we are back, and this is how I'm going to do this build. I'm going to see if I can get a better camera angle than this to try different things out. So if there's a different camera angle in the different build videos, just bear with me. I haven't figured out which way I want to do this yet, but I already have the 24 gauge pre-cut. I was actually shooting the build video before this, and I didn't like the way the camera angle looked, so I am resetting everything. But all I did was just take my pliers, okay, grab my wire, pull it out the hole, straighten out that little bend right there, get it nice and flat as you can. And all I did was start from where the holder is and go one time, clip it back in the hole, and cut it with the flush cutters. And the reason I do it like that, the reason I don't unwrap it and hold it right here just like this, is because sometimes when you clip your wire, if your fingers are slippery, the wire will slip through and it'll unravel. So I like to just, when I unravel my wire, I like to put it back in there just like that and push it down with my finger, and then clip the wire off right in front of my finger. And then once you get done, you can just push your finger down right in there and your wire's nice and secure. So we're not really going to need the pliers too much for this build, so let's go ahead and get it underway. Okay, the first thing I'm going to be showing you how to use is the Coil Concepts coiler. Alright, so let's go ahead and get this 521 tab out of the way so that's not in my way the whole time. I think that's the problem I was having in the last shoe, was that thing kept getting in my way. So let's go ahead and face this a little bit more that way. Okay, now how I used to wrap my coils was the Coil Concepts is real easy. I suggest to use this if you're just doing basic coil builds. This is really awesome because you can wrap your coil, and then if you want to do a space coil, you can just pull this out and put it back. You can pull it out and space your coils and push your coil back up again and get nice even space. That's if you're doing space coils, okay? Now, to use the Coil Concepts, I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but there's a little hole right there and it feeds out to the front. You just stick your wire right in that hole, and then you can pinch it down with your finger. Okay, now how I used to wrap my wire was I used to go this way. I used to go clockwise is how I used to do it. But what I've been doing recently is I've been doing it counterclockwise, and I'll tell you why as we go along, but I'm going to do it counterclockwise, okay? Now you just put it like that just to get it started. Wrap it like that. Take your little winder, okay? And I'm going to do it on the second setting since I have thicker gauge wire. And I'm just going to do, I'm going to do 8 wraps. I want to do 7, but I'm going to put 8 in it because I'm going to end up pulling one out to straighten my wire out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, now tighten that up just a little bit, just like that, just to get the angle right on it. Alright, pull that guy off, and I'm gonna pull this out, pull my wire down just like that, and I'm gonna stick this back in. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my pliers. It doesn't have to look pretty from this point, okay? So, because you can make it look pretty and straighten everything out as you go along, and make them look pretty as you go along, okay? So, on the Coil Concepts coiler, it's not like the Coil Master. It doesn't have the counterclockwise hole and the clockwise hole, so it bends a little bit right down here at the beginning. Actually, I'm going to clip a little bit of this off because it's getting in my way and I want to be able to straighten this out. So I'm going to snip a little bit of that off right there. Put that little piece in my trash cup so it doesn't fall on my floor and end up going in my foot later. And boom, straighten that out. Okay, now we did 8 wraps. Alright, So I'm just going to double check and make sure that all my wraps, make sure that I have 8 wraps in here. Okay, and it's kind of a pain in the ass to count them when it's all together. So what I like to do is pull it apart and just count my wraps, not space it, just pull it apart enough to where you can see the gaps in it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, now what I do is I grab this lead, and you're just going to pull one wrap out like such, and that gives you a nice straight piece. You see, that's why I put 8 wraps when I want to do 7 in the Curo concept. And you can do it on the coil jig too. It's just personal preference. That's just my way I do it. Okay, now I am going to clip a little bit of that wire off because the lead's a little too long. I don't need all that lead. Okay, and there's our coil, guys. Okay, 7 wraps, 24 gauge. Alright, now I'm going to show you how to do the coil on the coil jig. Oop. Sorry, guys. Straighten out this little bend right here in this wire with my pliers. Actually, we're using the pliers in this video a lot more than I thought I was going to. It's just been a while since I built basic coils. I forgot about straightening everything out. Okay, now what I'm going to do is just hold my wire in there, and I like to just pull. 24 gauge is really pretty easy to straighten out, and you don't have to have this wire completely straight in order to wrap it. You just want to get it as straight as you can. It's a little easier to work with on the Curo. Not on the Curo, on the coil jig. It's a little bit easier to do your wraps. Okay, now I'm doing my coils at 3 millimeters in diameter. Okay, so the 3 millimeters in diameter on the coil jig, you got the first one, which is 1.5, you got the second one, which is 2, you got the third one, which is 2.5, and you got the fourth one, which is the 3 millimeter, and you got the fifth one, which is the 3.5 millimeter. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go under. I'm going to go under like such. Okay, and all I'm going to do is grab my wire just like this. Okay, that's how I have my wire, and I'm just going to start to wrap it around. Okay, now you just want to grab your wire just like that. You just want to pinch it just like that. Just hold it. Okay, you kind of want to hold your coil jig in your middle finger, wrap just like that. That's how I hold it, like a crab claw. Okay, hold it just like this. Bring your coil jig nice and close. Get your wires up, right up against the back of that, where it starts to turn into the 3.5. And I like to just hold it just like this, just to do my first wrap. And I'm going to do it just like such until I get about halfway, and then I'm going to go just like this. Alright, now you kind of got to work around your finger until you get your first wrap in. Alright, and then just hold it and do your 7 wraps. Actually, this one started out kind of crappy, so I'm going to do 8 wraps, and I'm going to go ahead and pull one out. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay. Now you just see how it's messed up right there. See how it's messed up right there. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take and twist this coil just a little bit and kind of push that together just like that. Even though I'm gonna take it out, makes it a little bit easier. And I kind of bend my wire out like this, how it's like an L. See how it's bending out? Can you guys see that? Yeah, you can see it. So when you go to grab it, it doesn't catch up against your pliers. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to take one wrap out. just like such. Go ahead and straighten everything out. Clip a little bit off. Put that in my trash cup. Clip a little bit off of this guy. Put it in my trash cup. Okay, now you see this coil doesn't look as good as the one on the Coil Concepts. It's because you're wrapping it by hand. So you can clean it up and everything when you put it in the RDA. It doesn't have to really look pretty. But what I like to do is just tighten it up a little bit. Just take your pliers, hold this wire with your finger, pull it a little bit tight. Take this one, straighten it out, pull it a little bit tighter. Kind of just tighten it up a little bit. Push it together. Push it up against the notch and just try and clean it up as nice as I can on the coil jig. Now I don't know if you guys can see that, but that's kind of what the coil looks like on the coil jig. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and start and install this in the RDA, okay? So if I'm right, it'll come out to around 0.2, 0.3, somewhere in there. Okay, so we're doing the dual coil. So I want to bring my other coil over here, and this is where I'm going to need the screwdriver. Make sure I got all my holes open on my RDA. This is a 3-post. So I'm going to try and do this to where you guys can see it, but it may not work too well. Okay, now the reason I did the counterclockwise wraps is because I noticed when I was doing the clockwise wraps before, this lead over here would be under instead of up, and I would have to, when I would go to install my coils, it would be kind of tight. So I've noticed when I do with the counterclockwise over here, it's not as tight on your negative lead. It's not, you don't have a problem getting it up and over the ledge of the RDA. You just grab your pliers and it comes through nice and easy, just like that. Okay, so you just want to put that up a little bit, just work it in there, get it kind of close. I pull it in flush to, as flush as I can to the posts. Okay, and then what I do is I turn my coil jig up, and then what I do is it'll back out a little tiny bit on you, and that's kind of the gap that I like to leave. Now I'm going to screw down. Oh, forgot to change my screwdriver. There we go. I'm going to tighten down my negative lead, and you don't want to tighten when you're building these basic coils. You don't want to tighten them down too tight, because you will snap your leads. Okay, you will snap them. On the other coil builds that I do, you don't really have to worry about that too much, because they're thicker, and you don't really have to just, you really just don't have to worry about it. Okay, now I'm just going to leave that just like that. Okay, I got my negative lead tightened down just a little bit, and I'm not going to tighten it all the way down yet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my flush cutters and snip that negative lead right off. Okay, put that in the trash cup. Now turn the coil mat, or the Geek Vape 521 tab around. Now what I like to do is I like to take my little bit and just stick it in my other coil that I have sitting there. Okay, and I like to take and just kind of get it as to where I want it, back away from the positive post, the gap I want it. Okay, and I just bend the positive lead up, I just bend it up at a 90-degree angle, just so it won't move, and so it doesn't get in the way when I go to install my second coil. and it makes it a little easier when you go to cut it and everything like that. So we are going to go ahead and install this second coil. I'm going to put it on the coil jig, straighten out my leads just a little bit, take it, and you just stick the leads in the holes like such. What am I stuck on? Why is it stuck? Maybe I don't have my screw all the way. There we go. Slid right in there. See that? See how she worked? Alright, so I'm going to do this the same thing I did with the other one. Pull this one through. Pull that positive through. Pull this negative through. Just get it as close to those posts as I can. And then I'm going to level it out and let it straighten itself out. Kind of pull it through, let it straighten itself out. Kind of push it over just a little tiny bit just to get the angle starting on the coil for when you're going to work it over. Tighten down my negative lead, but not all the way, just enough to hold it. I'm going to raise my coil up just a little bit. Take and bend that negative lead out of the way. And I'm going to take this positive lead and bend that up just like that. Okay, now I'm going to leave everything the way it is. Come in here with my flush cutters, cut this negative lead off just like that. And did I move the camera? I know I bumped it, but did I move it? That's fine. Get these out the way because I'm probably not going to need these anymore. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tighten down my positive lead now. Not all the way, just enough to hold the wires in place. And I'm going to straighten that guy out just a little bit. Take and pull my coiler out, come down in there, and I'm going to snip this positive lead. Now when you're doing it the way that I do it, make sure that you do not cut the lead going in. Make sure you do not cut your other coil, which this can be a little bit of a pain. Gonna come in just like that and snip her off just like so. Hopefully the next one goes as easy as that because it actually kind of cooperated. So I'm gonna take this guy out and get that out of my way. And you see the coils don't look perfect right now. You see they kind of look like shit. They're not centered, they're not tight, they just look crappy right now, okay? I'm going to come in here, kind of stick my flush cutter in between the negative and the positive. Come down. You want to stick your flush cutters in kind of just like this to where the back of this, where the back of your flush cutter is up against the lead going into the positive of your coil. That way you don't cut your coil and you want to just snip it off. There's that, okay? Now, throw that in the trash cup. Okay, now, we're going to come in and straighten these guys out, alright? So, bend it over a little bit, push it over, kind of get them centered as possible without pushing them and working them too hard that you snap your leads. And that's the main reason why I did not tighten my leads down all the way yet. And when you got it kind of centered and where you want it, go ahead and tighten down your negative lead all the way, but not tight enough to where you're going to snap your lead. Alright, don't want to snap your lead, because then it just pisses you off and you're like, oh, why did I even start building, and blah blah blah. It gets a little hectic, okay? So we'll just come in here and I'll do this one facing the camera, see if I can do it this way, show you how I do it. Actually, I need to tighten this negative lead down just a little bit because it was loose and not holding the coil. So I'm going to bend that up just a little bit. Push back and over a little bit. Not real hard, just hard enough to work your coil over. Okay, now I'm going to hold my coil jig and tighten down my negative lead to where it's nice and tight, but not tight enough to where you snap it. And I'm going to go ahead and tighten down my positive the rest of the way. Just be very careful. Okay, now just finish cleaning these guys up a little bit. Kind of pull it out, lift it up, pull it out, lift it up. Kind of just like that. That's where I'm going to leave that coil. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with this guy here. Kind of straighten it out, push out and over, out and over, up, out, over, bam, just like that. Make sure she's sitting even, which she's not. Why aren't you staying there? There we go. And then you just want to kind of hold your coil master just like this and look down at them. Make sure they're sitting pretty even, the same height. This one is a little lower than that one. So what I'm going to do is just put my coiler back in and lift it up just a tiny bit. And that's perfect. They are nice and even. So we can get that out of the way. Just take your screwdriver again. And you want to just make sure all your screws are nice and tight, but not tight enough to where you're going to snap your leads. And there we go. I think I'm going to leave them just like that. Now get all this crap out of the way. Excuse me while I have a vape really quick. Oh, that juice is so good. Now, I'm going to check our ohms. 0.28. See that? 0.28. I know on here it looks like 0.58 the way you guys are looking at it, but it's not. It is 0.28, okay? 7 wraps, 24 gauge, 0.28. Now, your ohms are going to change as you fire them, but they shouldn't change very drastically, maybe an ohm or two. Okay, now I switch my coil master to fire, and I'm going to just pulse it real lightly, okay? Just pulse it, pulse it. See how it dropped? Just pulse it just to get them glowing and get them hot to where you can pinch them. Kind of clean them up. Make sure your leads are tight. Because if your leads aren't tight, and they're even a little bit loose, you'll have firing problems, so you always just want to make sure your leads are tight. Now see how that when I was firing it dropped down all the way to 0.23. Well, you couldn't see it, but it dropped down all the way to 0.23, which that's how I knew one of my leads was loose, because that was a very drastic change. So I'm just going to fire it again. It actually went up 1 ohm instead of 0.28. Now it's 0.29. And now, as you can see, I tightened down this lead, which was loose, and it's 0.29. And they're glowing pretty nice. They need a little bit more pinching. They're not glowing nice enough for me, because I'm kind of picky. Let's fire it again. See how they do. Oh yeah, that's perfect. See how they're glowing just like that? That's exactly what you want. See that? Those are some beautiful coils. Those are some beautiful basic coils. That's going to give you very nice flavor. Now see, it actually went up an ohm. It's actually reading 0.3 ohms. That might be because they're hot, or that might be what they exactly leveled out to. So again, you just want to make sure that your leads are still tight, because when you pulse them and your coils get hot, sometimes they tend to tighten up and loosen up and just move around a little bit. So I always make sure my leads are always tight. Give it one more fire, and they're glowing beautiful, guys. Okay, so now I'm gonna let them cool down for a second. Okay. Sorry, I forgot to grab my cotton out. I knew I was forgetting something. Alright, now I use good old cotton bacon for my RDAs. Now, actually, you know what? Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and use that piece, because this is not an RDA that I'm going to use. This is just, I'm using it for the build tutorial. I use crazy coils, aliens, and staple fuse Claptons and stuff like that. But if you're a beginner and you're just getting into building, this is a really good build. It gives off nice flavor, and it'll give you good cloud production as well. So what you want to do is, a lot of people like table roll it or something like that. How I do it is I just take and kind of just dab my tongue on my palms and just rub them together, just so your palms get some grip on them. And you want to just roll your cotton just like this. You don't want to flatten it. You just want to kind of get it into a roll. And then I'm going to snip that in half. Bring this back over. Cotton keeps sticking to my finger. I'm going to pinch one in just like that. And just stick it right through. Pull it through. And you want it kind of tight. You want it kind of tight in there. But you want it just tight enough to where you can do this, but not tight enough to where you can't move it. Okay, so just roll it, stick it on through, grab it, pull it through, and that's about where I want it, right there. Okay, there's my bunny ears. I kind of just take my fingers and fluff them out. Okay, and then you're just going to take and snip them off, just like that. Throw it in the trash cup, spin this around, snip it off, and then I take my paper clip, stuff it on in. Make sure you got it. Make sure you stuff it in. You just want to stuff it in there just like that. And you want to leave a gap kind of in your coil under it. You want to just leave a gap just like that, so that you can get airflow behind your coils. Okay, now I'm going to just go ahead and do this side. Sorry this video is taking so long, guys, but I promise you, as I go along, the build videos will get better. Actually, the more I go along, kind of the longer they'll kind of get, because we'll be getting into more complicated coils. So that's how, kind of what you want, just like this. Bam. Just like that. And what are we going to put on this one? Let's go ahead and put some teardrop from Electro Vapor that I got when I went to visit my fiance in North Carolina. We'll go ahead, 0.30 guys, 0.29, 0.30, they're still kind of fluctuating, but that's around what they're going to be at, okay? So I'm going to just juice her on up. And there you have it, guys. Let me pause the video, get you back up to face, and we will go ahead and vape it, and we'll get on out of here. Hold on 1 second.